Welcome back to the fourth episode of See Chris Learn. During this episode, we'll be exploring the world of Venus's Hecate Quadrant. You'll recognize this geologic map from the last episode. What you might not have known is that it actually comes with a bunch of different information. These are descriptions of everything in the map. Every color represents a different type of geologic feature. So for example, the reds and oranges are volcanic objects, the greens are coronae material, so on and so forth. You'll also note the lines in the bottom corner. This entire section is basically just a big map key. A certain kind of line is a fracture, another kind is a scarp, which is a cliff sort of thing. What you see here is the location of the Hecate Quadrant on Venus, right there in the middle. And these colorful images are topographic, roughness, and emissivity maps, respectively. All of these images actually come from the Magellan spacecraft. So, there are a lot of ways to look at the landscape of Venus. Actually, more than I ever thought there could be when I first started this project. Take a tholus, for example. What's a tholus, you ask? And I had the exact same question. A tholus is just a small domical mountain or hill. It's as simple as that. There's 8 of them in the Hecate Quadrant, and it's possible that they're created with volcanic activity, but they're not volcanic in nature. So though they're in the red and orange category, on the map, they're not actually, they don't necessarily have to be volcanic. That's just the thought about how they're created. So also included in the red-orange category of volcanism are mons, patera, fluctus, chasma, edifice field, and volcanic complexes. Now basically, each of these is just a subcategory of protrusions, or in the case of chasma, depressions in the surface. Each is related in some way to volcanoes and created by volcanic activity. The coronae are easier to understand. For one thing, there's just the one type. It's a corona. So all of the green bits on the map are just oval-shaped depressions in the surface. Again, we're not quite sure how they're formed. The most popular thought is that there's hot material in the mantle pushes up the crust, but then doesn't actually become volcanic, and so it just comes back down, but it leaves a depression in the surface with a rim around the edge. Basically, it looks like a crown, which explains the name, because corona means crown in Latin. And now onto the blue category, the plains. You might think plains are plains are plains, and to an extent you're actually correct. What the blue category on this map does is it interprets the plains, the different types of plains, like malted versus smooth, and then also posits how those different features might have been created. So, for example, the smooth plains are volcanic plains that are, and I quote here, aerially limited deposits with relatively low radar backscatter, embays all other plains units with which it is in contact. And all that really means is that these particular volcanic plains have undergone very little deformation since the lava cooled into rock, whereas others, the malted plains and all of those, have had different things happen to them that create a different kind of surface. The final 2 categories are relatively small. The tessera is an area of tile-like polygonal terrain, and it's a term that's actually used only on Venus. Now what this means is that the crust of other planets doesn't crack and break in the same patterns, but no one actually knows why, so it's one of those, fun mysteries to be solved. And then the last category on the map is craters, and if you've been paying attention at all, I sincerely hope you know what an impact crater is by now. Now, all of the information that I gave you about what the different kinds of things are is actually my own research that I did for a project. So I don't really have any sources for that. I mostly just Googled, and you can use Wikipedia if you're interested in finding more out about that. But I've also included the link to the actual PDF of the map and a little booklet of explanation that comes with it if you'd like to take a look at those. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about this baby. This is the Weird Mons. The handy-dandy category guide on the map states that the Weird Mons was created by intermediate to high backscatter, which just means that the lava that erupted was of particularly low viscosity. The more viscous the lava, the higher it goes. It also tells you that the Mons superimposes 3 specific features. 2 of those are just plains, hummocky plains and the smooth plains that I talked about before. That means the lava flow that created the smooth plains happened before the eruption that created the weird Mons. It also superimposes the Taranga corona, so that means it's a younger feature than the plains and the corona. So why should you care about some weird mountain? Well, for one thing, it's because I'm not saying weird. I'm actually saying an old Germanic word, W-Y-R-D, and it means fate. Now, before you roll your eyes and ignore me because the concepts of fate and destiny are overplayed and honestly considered kind of a moot point in our society, I'm not actually going to talk about fate or destiny in that way. So turn that eye roll into a blink and pay attention. Weird is a concept that many ancient societies actually believed in, and they called it by different names, but they all had a very similar belief system about this. And since we're talking mythology, it wasn't just a concept, it was also a personage. The Norn were the Scandinavian deities that oversaw the fate of humans. Much like the trio of Greek deities that we call, well, the Fates, there were 3 Norn. One was the past, one was the present, and one was the future. I wouldn't even try to pronounce their names for you because I am not Scandinavian, and it's just not going to happen. But here, have a look. Make of that what you will. Now, the Norns watched over all of humanity's fate. They didn't quite weave it as much like the Greek deities did, but they did have a hand in it. And they also kept the roots of Yggdrasil that watered and fed. Now, Yggdrasil is the world tree, and as long as the tree continued to flourish, then humanity continued to flourish. So it's a really good thing that the Norns kept, track of it. When Yggdrasil dies, so do we. So, that's a quick peek into the world of Norse mythology. It's actually a very interesting topic if you're into that sort of thing, and I would highly suggest that you look more into it. It's definitely a whole lot more than Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston trying to kill each other for their father's throne, I can tell you that much. As always, my friends, rock on and keep it classic.